Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here. Welcome to part 21 of the Dark Souls 2 version 1.0 full playthrough, not necessarily a walkthrough. In this final part of the playthrough, we're going to end the game. In order to end the game, you need to have a specific item, which is this, the Giant's Kinship. And you get this after defeating the Giant Lord in the Memory of J. Let me just check the name of that boss really quick. Memory of J. I think it's Giant Lord. Yeah, Giant Lord. You have to kill the Giant Lord, then you get that. Having that item will open, or will cause the final boss to spawn. The Throne of Want, which is the end of the game, is available as soon as you have the King's Ring. So we will equip that, if only temporarily. And when you reach the Throne of Want, you'll have to fight a 2v1 boss fight, the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender. After killing them, if you do not have the Giant's Kinship, it kind of just stops. Like, the game just kind of hits a dead end, and then you have to leave and go get the Giant's Kinship. But when you finish that 2v1 boss fight, if you have the Giant's Kinship, it will automatically start the final boss, so you don't get a break. That said, though, that 2v1 boss fight is finished. It's not part of the final encounter. So if you finish that boss and then the final boss spawns and you die, you only have to fight the final boss. So it's not too hard. All right. So my stats to end the game are level 146 with soul memory of 1.91 million. 50 Vigor, 33 Endurance, 30 Vitality, 4 Attunement, 20 Strength, 22 Dex, 26 Adaptability, 8 Intelligence, 6 Faith, using a Saintier Spear +5, I have a Lightning Shortbow +10, and a Drangleic Shield +4, with the Faram set, Chloranthy Ring +1, Ring of Steel Protection +1, 3rd Dragon Ring, and of course the King's Ring, which will switch out for something else. So once you're ready, rest of the bonfire, and you want to warp to Drangleic Castle. And you want to go to... Oh. You want to go to the King's Gate. Okay. So, you're going to open this using the King's Ring. And as it's opening, I'm going to equip something else. You're going to have one final conversation with the Maiden in Green. But you will notice she's a lot shorter. It is unexplained why that is, but she finally introduces herself as Shanalot, and she says that the dragon gave birth to her, which is why she's in the Dragon Eyrie when we reach that place, and she gives us, like, her final bit of dialogue. Again, unexplained why she's shorter here. There is someone in the credits credited as Shanalot Young, I think it's called, like the character's called, so it seems like there is a cut character of a young Shanalot, and maybe that's her, and there may have been some plot line where... I don't know. I really have no idea what the plot line could have been, but something changed. But that's the only instance of her being shorter. I can't remember if she's so short in the Dragon Eyrie. I don't think she is. I think it's just here. All right. So, unfortunately, if we die, we have to do this run every time. It's a bit boring of a run, and it also means that we have to equip the King's Ring, unequip the King's Ring, and keep going. All right, Throne Watcher and Throne Defender. This fight is, I don't know, just a little annoying. One will revive the other. So you need to be very careful of that. You also need, and because one revives the other, you need to be careful with how much damage you're dealing to either one of them. You want to make sure you're not killing one too much faster than the other. There's also a pit around the room, So watch out for that. Wow. You guys are just fun. So exasperated with this game. Trying to even out the damage here. Wow. Good for you. Yeah, trying to even out the damage if I can. So at 50%, I know the gold one gets to shoot lightning. Yeah, this one buffs her sword with lightning as well. You gotta get the other one low. Or lower. Oh, God. Oh. So this whole fight is, it's just, I don't know, like, wait your turn, kind of. Like, that's really what it feels like most of the time. It's just, like, wait for your small window of dealing damage. She's a bit weaker than he is. Not by much, but it seems like she takes a little bit more damage or has less health. All right, here he goes. So this at least gets rid of his shield, which is nice. Ooh, 3 hits. Yeah, good for you with the overhead slam. Ah! There's that Dark Souls 2 damage. So, again, you want to be careful. You don't want to kill one before the other, or one too soon before the other. You be very careful of that. So, I'm going to try to get her down a bit further. I should really heal. Oh, fuck you. You're just so annoying. Alright. They're good to die now. Like, I can kill one or the other. It doesn't matter. Whichever one goes down first is fine. Alright, that's it. Get a Divine Blessing. And then the final boss is going to show up. And the final boss is Nashandra, which is the queen. She comes out of nowhere, looks completely different. Nashandra is not hard. She's not hard at all. But she can deal a lot of damage very quickly. So she doesn't have a lot of moves. She's quite slow. And she looks like this for some weird reason. Even though the last time we saw her, she looked like a queen. It's unclear like what she really is. The DLC explains that she's a daughter of the Abyss. So it's possible that she is one of Manus' children or she comes from a part of Manus. But again, in vanilla Dark Souls 2, the game really does not explain her at all. It is implied as you're playing the game that the queen tricked the king, Vendrick, into obtaining the throne or seeking the throne because she wanted it for herself. All right. So throughout the fight, she will put down these little portal things or these curse things. I think you could shoot them. No? They have to be struck physically? Anyway, all you gotta do is just walk up to them. And then you can hit them and they go away. Now, with that said, they don't do a whole lot. Like, they curse you, which, of course, can be devastating. And it can tick down your health. But... oh, God. This is the ability you gotta watch out for. Similar to Dark Lurker. Of course, you gotta watch out for the pit. The pit can really mess you up. Like, the room is a semicircle, so you have to, like, always keep your location in mind. Be very careful of your positioning. we're going to back up a little bit, because now we got a few of these cursed jammies. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's Nashandra. That's the game. That's Dark Souls 2. So after Nashandra goes down, you get your souls. I think she says something. You get the soul of Nashandra. And then white shows up, although in 1.0 is it automatic? You just gotta walk towards it. I know in Scholar, like a big white orb shows up, but maybe you just gotta walk up to it. Yeah, you just walk up to it in 1.0. Okay, that's it. That is Dark Souls 2 version 1.0. At the end of all these games, I always have a little bit of story time, so that's what we're gonna do now. All right. This playthrough specifically, the reason I started it a year ago is because I was kind of bored while waiting for Elden Ring. And another YouTuber who created a lot of Elden Ring network test content, including out of bounds content. Her name is her channel name is Allison by Proxy. She uploaded some fantastic footage of out of bounds during the network test. Helped me set it up so I could get out of bounds. Like, she did a lot of work during that time, so definitely check out her channel. But she posted on Twitter that Dark Souls 2 is her favorite Dark Souls, and I don't know if we like talked about it or if I just kind of got the idea from that. But I remember her talking about it on Twitter and being like, "There's no way, like, there's no way it could be someone's favorite. Like, I don't get it. Like, I've heard it before. The PvP in this game is unreal. It's so good. The weapon variety is fantastic. So many different builds are viable. But the PvE experience, in my opinion, is terrible, especially in 1.0. It gets a lot better in Scholar the First Sin, which I've said throughout this playthrough. But this game, as I played it my first time, it was not that enjoyable. And so, because Allison put that on Twitter, it got me thinking, like, is it as bad as I remember? Is it as frustrating as I remember? Or am I just looking at it, you know, like hindsight is 2020, like it wasn't that bad, you know? And so I figured, well, I have a PlayStation 3. I have the PlayStation 3 that I played this game on. I have the game on a disc. I can play version 1.0 if I want. I can play this game as it was when it came out. And so, that's what I set out to do. I'm glad I did it. I will say that. I'm glad I re-experienced this game. And honestly, like, I'm kind of happy I ended up getting a couple trophies. Like, it helps to mark the occasion in a sense. Like, I can go back to my psnprofiles.com account and, like, see that I got my first trophy March 10th, 2014. And probably, like, the last trophy, January 12th, 2023. Like, 9 years later. But I'm glad I replayed it. And the reason for that is because I'm glad, like, my memory was correct. I will say, like, figuring out the adaptability thing, I did not know that my first time through. I think if I were to check my original playthrough, my adaptability would probably be pretty low. I don't think I can load it because that's a 1.6 save or whatever it is. Like, whatever the DLC ended up being, the DLC patch, that's that save, and this is 1.0. I think I would mess it up if I loaded it. Maybe not, but I kind of think I would, honestly, so I kind of don't want to check it. But I'm confident that I never changed my adaptability, which is why I had a very difficult time beating a lot of bosses. But that specific change of, you know, assigning invincibility frames to a stat without outright explaining it, I think was a really poor choice on the face, or on the part of the devs. And they've since undid that change. Like, that agility has never been a thing in Dark Souls again, or at least the attachment of iframes to a stat has never been a thing again. And I'm glad for that. I think it's confusing, especially when, like, the change is not apparent. It's not like you increase your adaptability and by proxy your agility stat, and the game actively tells you, like, okay, because now you have this, these types of hits won't hit you anymore. Like, it doesn't explain the timing. It's still too hidden. And I think hidden statistics are fine as long as they don't affect the core gameplay and like the balance of the difficulty. That's just me. So that change always frustrated me. The adaptability agility change always frustrated me. The enemy placement in 1.0 always frustrated me. Shrine of Amana, I am shocked we got through it in one go, and we didn't die or we died once to the invader maybe. But I am just so shocked. So shocked. I remember being down there for a while. I'm actually looking here for Shanalot. Okay, maybe not. I could have sworn it was a young Shanalot. Maybe not. Either way, the enemy placement in Shrine of Mana was always a nightmare. The phantom hitboxes, which, some people will claim, oh, it's because your agility isn't high enough. One, I don't think that's the case, and two, I think that's a terrible reason for phantom hitboxes. It just makes the game miserable. And like I either said this last time or in this video, part of what frustrated me so much about Dark Souls 2 is that when, like, this wasn't From Software's first attempt at changing the formula in a way. Like, Demon Souls was a kitchen sink sort of game. No one wanted it. Sony didn't want it, even though they ended up publishing it in Japan. They had to shop it around. Atlas published it in the US. Namco published it in Europe, and that's part of the reason why the rights got so messed up and a remake took so long. But, like, Demon Souls was a level-based game with the next iteration of Kingsfield gameplay in third person. And, like, it took the lessons from Kingsfield. Eternal Ring, I think, is another game of theirs. And is Shadow Tower? Maybe Shadow Tower. I think Alison by Proxy actually has a playthrough of a few of old From games on her channel. Definitely check those out. But Demon Souls took all the learnings from those games and put them together, and then made a level-based third-person action RPG with serious difficulty and serious trust in the players. Yeah, there are some bad things in Demon Souls, like the frame rate is god-awful, the performance of that game is terrible, but it's still fun because the core gameplay is solid. It's very, very solid. Then they came out with Dark Souls, and Dark Souls took everything great about Demon Souls and put it into a sandbox world. It was no longer level-based, everything was interconnected, and I'm yet to play a game whose world is as good as Dark Souls 1. The world of Lordran is incredible. The amount of times you show up in places and unlock doors and, like, find shortcuts back to places, Firelink Shrine especially, is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's so good. That game, in my eyes, outside of performance and maybe like Lost Izalith and Bed of Chaos, is like a perfect game. There are so many good things in that game that they far outweigh any of the bad. So, when it came to Dark Souls 2, to take such a step down in that PvE experience was shocking. The other thing was that this game was marketed using footage that was never going to be the player experience. Like, the game looked so much better. It looked evil. I remember when the first trailer for this game came out, or the first gameplay of this game came out, me and my best friend Joe, we both said to each other, this game looks evil, and we were here for it. But with what got released, everything was super downgraded. The frame rate was abysmal. Everything looked muddy. The textures were like just weird and off. The physics that they showed weren't the same. Like, it just wasn't the game that was advertised. And that was very, very frustrating. So that added to it for sure. What I will say, though, is one of the nice things about the launch of this game was I got together with a bunch of friends. We all piled into my friend's apartment, and we all bought the game at midnight, or 11:30. I guess they gave it to us because I have those trophies from before midnight. But we all bought the game and played it together in my friend's apartment. I think there was 8 of us or something like that. And some of us went through Forest of Fallen Giants. Some of us went to Hyde's Tower of Flame. And like, we all took different routes. We didn't all take different routes. There's only so many ways you can go at the start of this game. Some people went to the well, like they went to the Grave of Saints. Like, they figured out, let me just farm for the cat ring and I'll drop down there. Like, we really all did try different things, and it was really nice. And it was cool to like walk around the apartment and see people in different places. Some were in Forest of Fallen Giants with me. A friend of mine went to Hyde's Tower and then was in No Man's Wharf, and then got to the 3-on-1 boss in Lost Bastille, like, before us. Some of us were stuck on the Pursuer I was stuck on the Pursuer for a very, very long time because of the hitboxes. So that was like a nice thing, was that the game did allow you to do different things. Dark Souls 1, as great as that world is kind of linear. Like, yeah, you can go to the catacombs. Good luck. You're very clearly not supposed to be there. But in this game, you can go to Hyde's Tower of Flame first and fare just fine. You just got to avoid, like, be good at rolling and like, be good at dodging the big lumbering knight enemies that are there, and you're fine. Dragon Rider can be killed with a cheese strat, and you can kill him using the environment. Or he's just an easy boss. Like, he's not that hard. So that I do think that's a strength of the game, is that you have some choice. But because of the performance of the game and because of the way enemies are placed, it just didn't feel good. And I want to read you something. So I think the back of the PS3 box says "Prepare to die again." I'm actually going to grab it because I want to make sure I'm correct. So give me 1 second. All right, so the back of the box. So this is for the Black Armor edition. I don't have... This one has a slipcase. I'm not sure if the slipcase has the same information on it. But the back of the slipcase says... Afflicted... I have low lighting in this room. Afflicted by an ancient curse of the undead. Explore a breathtaking world of grave danger. Clash with other players in unique online play. Go beyond death and an unforgettable experience. From Software's breakout hit returns to haunt your soul. So, the other thing I want to read you is from the official Future Press guide. I'm going to read you the insert, or the thing, the slip that's on the back before you break the seal. And it says, Dark Souls 2 Collector's Edition Guide. Dark Souls is back, and it's darker and more difficult than ever. This time, death is more punishing and exploration more lethal. Those who enter Drangleic unprepared will be left hollowed and crushed. The Dark Souls 2 Collector's Edition Guide is here to light a path through the darkness and to help free players from their wicked curse. From the same team that created the critically acclaimed Dark Souls guide comes the most anticipated strategy guide for the most unforgiving game of the year. So... the messaging around Dark Souls 2 was that the game was difficult. Now, yes, the DLC version of Dark Souls 1 is called Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition. That felt like it was playing more into a meme because the Artorias of the Abyss DLC was no more difficult than anything else. It was the same fairness throughout. Yeah, like Artorias has a lot of cool-ass moves, deals a lot of damage. Black Dragon Calamite is one of the best dragon fights in history, is very strong and difficult, and Manus is wild. But at no point do you feel like these fights are unfair. At least I didn't. With Dark Souls 2, the idea was clearly make the game harder, not make the game more interesting. Dark Souls 2 is made more difficult by creating situations where the player character is easily overrun by enemies or is put in unfair situations against big enemies. What I mean by that is early on in Forest of Fallen Giants, you can get overwhelmed by just like regular Dreglings. And in Demon Souls, like the first enemies you fight are Dreglings. And it shows you, yes, these guys are strong. However, if you let them exhaust themselves, you can kill them in 2 hits. In Forest of Fallen Giants, the same applies. However, you now have to deal with like 4 or 5 at once that attack you from different angles. So the strategy is put them in a meat grinder. Go down a hallway and just put them in a meat grinder and hope for the best. But then they start putting them on top of you, and they're throwing things at you, or they're shooting arrows at you, or they're throwing bombs at you, or knives. Like, they're putting you in just frustrating situations that are designed to kill you. They're not designed to teach you anything. In Shrine of Amana, the casters have an insane aggro range and are often casting 2-on-1. And your only choice is to break out a bow and try to snipe them, or if you have no ranged options, you basically have to either try to bum rush them or use the environment to block what they're shooting at you. But at the same time, you have those Archdrake clerics that are melee fighters. They run super fast, their polearm has a crazy reach and does mad damage, so while you're trying to deal with them, you're getting shot at by sniper mages. And it just makes for a miserable experience. Like, it limits your playstyle and punishes others. Like, I don't think games should do that, and I don't feel like Dark Souls 1 does that either. Demon Souls didn't do it before that. One of the other things that really bothers me about this game is the world design. It doesn't make any sense. And there's a theory that says the intro cutscene of Dark Souls 2 shows what we assume is the player character falling into an abyss and dying. So this could be a dream, or it could be a nightmare. This could be purgatory. The world doesn't have to make sense. I think that's all well and good, but I don't believe it, because if that were the case, you could design a much better world to play into that. At no point should you go from Earthen Peak to Iron Keep. You go up an elevator and suddenly you're in a lava-filled volcano, even though that mountain is nowhere to be found. Look at this. You have Drangleic Castle in the distance there. You have Forest of Fallen Giants, and where you fight the Pursuer over there. You have Hyde's Tower of Flame in this direction. Where is the volcano? Like, you should be able to see a volcano from here, right? Like, the sky should be red when you're in Earthen Peak. Like, or Harvest Valley. Like, no. It does not make any sense. It is a poorly designed world. And coming from Demon Souls, where you have, like, they are level-based, but those levels are interconnected. They're linear, but when you're in, 2-1, you're descending into a mine, and the shortcuts that you're opening are part of a mine. Like, you dump water into, I don't know if it's lava or something, but you dump water into this area, and suddenly it opens up a new area, because now the lava's not there, the heat isn't as much. When you're in 2-2, you're descending further into the mine, and there's scaffolding along all the walls, and you can drop down the scaffolding, and then you reach Flame Lurker, who is guarding a temple of the dragon god. And then Shrine of Storms is like, 4-1 is one of the coolest areas. You're in a ruined keep, and you're looping around and around and around, and then eventually you find the entrance into 4.2, which is like the grave, and like it's just really good world design. Dark Souls 1 again has this crazy interconnected world, but Dark Souls 2, it's like they had a bunch. It reminds me of Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, where you have a castle, but the developers had ideas for other worlds for Jonathan and Charlotte to go to, and so they created the portraits, and you go into the portrait and you go to a different world. But it makes sense. Like, that makes sense. You're finding portraits within Dracula's castle, and you're transporting to other worlds to fight the minions of Dracula wherever they are. In this game, it doesn't make any sense. And it's all done through hallways and elevators, which are often in games used to mask load screens. But for whatever reason, they're used to connect places that have nothing to do with each other at all. And it happens frequently. So, it was a frustrating experience playing this again. It was a frustrating experience playing it in 2014 when it first came out. No one asked for this video series. I did this as an experiment to see if my hindsight was correct. And to me it is. It is still frustrating. It's still a poor performing game. And it wasn't fun towards the end. Like, I'm glad this is over. What I will say is in the year 2023, Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin exists. And Dark Souls 2 version 1.0 kinda doesn't. It is not supported. You cannot play it online. The only way to play this game is to have the disc or maybe have 1.0 installed on your PC still. I'm sure you can get it in other ways, but those are the official ways to play it. So I'm very glad Scholar of the First Sin exists. It fixes a lot of the gameplay balance problems that this game has. The AI on the summons is a bit smarter, so completing those quest lines is a lot easier. And it just makes improvements across the board. It also contextualizes enemies by placing them in different areas. I talked about this when we got through, or when we were going to the through the Shaded Woods. I talked about the Falconer soldiers that appear in the Shaded Woods because they're leading you towards Drangleic Castle. They're Drangleic soldiers. Like, it's little things like that, little touches that just make the world feel more organic and better. So Scholar is the way to play this game. But if you're interested in the experiment, try 1.0. Let me know what you think. It is tough to play now. You have to have the PS3 disc. You have to have a PS3. You could emulate it. That's another way to do it. But emulating it's going to improve the performance dramatically. So you're not really getting the experience. And that's why I played it on PS3. I wanted to play it as I did March 14th or March 11th, 2014, whatever it was. Okay. Yeah. The final thing that I will say is that playing 1.0 of Dark Souls 2 has given me an idea. The only game that I haven't played in this series is, well, that's not totally true. I started playing Dark Souls late. My best friend tried to get me into Demon Souls when it was coming out. I remember he either showed it to me in a magazine or it was definitely online, some RPG website, and he was like, yo, this game's getting a lot of hype. These are the folks that made Armored Core. I never played Armored Core, so that was kind of lost on me. But he did. And so you got to play Demon Souls. It's grown-up Zelda. You'll love it. I watched him play it a bunch. I was like, yeah, this game looks and performs like shit. There's no way I'm playing this. Not happening. Okay, whatever. You're missing out. Dark Souls 1 came out. Same thing. Now it's an interconnected world. It's so much better. This game performs and looks like shit. I'm not playing it. Little did I know what I was missing. When Dark Souls 1 came to PC, I got it on PC. I finally relented. I got up to the gargoyles, and I was like, yo, this game runs like dirt. Like, it doesn't function. This game is running at less than 20 FPS. It's inconsistent. It's hard to control. Like, hard to control in the sense of the frame rate. The performance is so bad, I don't know how you're playing this game. Then DS Fix came out. And so, when Dark Souls came to PC, it was Prepare to Die Edition. It had the DLC. And then, a modder by the name of Durante released something called DS Fix, which made the game look a lot better by scaling the graphics correctly, and it ran a consistent 60 FPS, or really whatever FPS you set it at. 60 was the way to go. It had a couple drawbacks, like it messed with the physics a tiny bit, like jumps were harder at 60 FPS, but it made the game so much more enjoyable, and I fell in love with it. And I'm normally someone who doesn't care about performance. As long as the performance is consistent, I don't care. That's why I'm like, Bloodborne doesn't really need a 60 FPS patch. It runs at 30, it's fine. It dips in a couple places. You can consistently recreate those dips. It's fine. This game, though, is tough to play. I have gone back. So this game being Dark Souls 2, the performance makes it tough to play because it's inconsistent. I have gone back and played Dark Souls 1 on PS3 to get the Platinum Trophy. I did that after playing Prepare to Die Edition to death on PC. I had beaten it like 5 or 6 times over, and I figured, you know what, let me get the Platinum Trophy on PlayStation. Went out, bought the game, did it. I did it in like 30 hours or something like that. It was really quick. It was quick enough to the point where I went to the subreddit and applied for the Platinum Trophy flare and sent the screenshots. They didn't believe me. Like, they didn't believe that I could do it that fast. And then I said, oh, by the way, here's my Steam profile. I don't think I have all the achievements on Steam, but I was like, I knew exactly what I was doing. So like, okay, got it. Great job. But I have not played Dark Souls 1 in its original state. I have not done that. I have played it on PS3, and I have experienced Blighttown on that generation, running at 5 FPS. But I have not played that game through in version 1.0. I know not a ton has changed in Dark Souls 1 through patches. I know lightning was nerfed to death in like 1.1 or 1.2. And it's been balanced a couple times. 1.0, though, is something I want to experience. So that's what I'm going to do next in terms of like classic playthroughs. I don't know exactly when I'm going to get through it all because I still want to cover new games. I would like to get Forspoken, which comes out in literally 14 days, or 13. It's 1 a.m. now. Comes out in a couple weeks. I'm interested in that game, and I may cover it. We'll see. But I'm committing to go back and play Dark Souls 1. Like this series, I will release it all at once. I'm not going to do it piecemeal. Unless I take an extended break, then I may upload it, just in case it takes me a year to get through it like this did. I do wish that I stuck with this, but Elden Ring just like took over my life in the best way and had a lot going on. But yeah, so Dark Souls 1 is like the next... Dark Souls 1 1.0 on PS3 is the next thing that I'm going to do. But that's it. All right. So I guess the closing note is that Dark Souls 2 is a good game, but in my opinion, it's a bad Souls game. It's better than a lot of games out there, and Scholar of the First Sin improved it dramatically. But it is the weakest of the Souls games by far. And I hope through seeing someone play 1.0 properly, with like the right adaptability, high agility, being able to roll through things, I hope that you can at least agree that it seems like a frustrating experience. If you disagree, let me know why. And if it's PvP, I get it. I'm with you. I'm not a PvP person, so I don't really experience that side of Souls games. But from a PvE perspective, I would like to know why this might be higher on your list than it is mine in terms of how Souls games rank. My ranking is at the top, we have Dark Souls 1. That's S tier. Then on A tier, it's Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring. B tier would be Dark Souls 3. A tier, I would also put Sekiro, if we include it, which I generally don't, but just speaking of the modern From Software catalog. So S, Dark Souls 1. A is Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. B tier is Dark Souls 3. And then, honest to God, D tier, F tier is Dark Souls 2. Like, we have to wait to see what they do with this formula in the coming years, but I can guarantee you, I don't think anything is going to move Dark Souls 2 up a notch. It's been 9 years, and it hasn't changed. The games that released after Dark Souls 2 have always been better. And that's it. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope my frustration hasn't ruined this for you. I hope I don't seem like a whiny gamer. I really never rage. I think the angriest I was getting was against Vendrick in the previous part of the walkthrough, or 2 walkthroughs ago. But yeah, I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you enjoyed it somewhat. But I'll stop talking now. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more videos for Dark Souls 2 version 1.0, unfortunately there won't be any. But if you want to see that Dark Souls 1 version 1.0 playthrough, subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when those videos go live. And if you're looking for help in any games, this is your stop. I love covering games with guides, so subscribe for those as well. And feel free to request games. You never know, I might cover it. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the blue join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. The links for those are in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next game. Bye-bye.